Okay, so we've got the Enneagram, right? And everyone's favorite masked musician, the Phantom of the Opera. Today we're going to try to figure out if he's really a sexual four, like some people think.
Yeah, putting a real personality type onto a fictional character like the Phantom,
That's yeah.
it's definitely interesting. He's so complex.
For sure, for sure. And get this, one of our listeners actually sent us this whole YouTube video about it, which got us thinking more about this whole thing. This is going to be a fun deep dive.
Yeah, and they really went deep on the sexual four, sometimes even called the hating four or the competitive four.
I can see why they'd call it that. Hating four sounds kind of rough.
It does, but they make a good point in the video that it can be kind of a misleading name. It's not so much about actually, hating everything and everyone. It's more about this like deep fear of being replaced. And then that can lead to them wanting to be super special, like totally unique, even envied. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And a lot of times that comes with this like deep desire for someone who really, really gets them, like someone who sees everything about them, the good and the bad.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so when we think about the Phantom, right, with his whole hidden lair and all that,
Yeah.
it kind of makes you wonder, could they be onto something?
Yeah, definitely some interesting connections there. Like one thing the video talks about is how talented the Phantom is, musically speaking.
Oh, totally. And that lines up with fours being super drawn to art, right?
Yeah.
Like they use it to show everyone what their inner world is like.
Exactly. Think about like the music of the night. It's more than just a pretty song, It's like a direct line to what the Phantom's feeling deep down. All that longing to connect with someone, the fear of being rejected.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even just those lyrics, like when he sings, "Open your mind, let your fantasies unwind." It's all about this deep need to be truly seen and understood. And that totally fits with what fours really want.
Wow, you're right. When you put it like that, the lyrics hit totally different.
Yeah.
And you can't forget about the mask, right? Talk about hiding your true self. The video pointed out how that connects to the whole sexual four fear of being vulnerable.
Yeah, it's almost like he built this whole fantasy world, this musical labyrinth. It's just to protect himself, to keep his heart safe. The mask isn't just what's on his face. It's like a whole symbol for his struggles.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And the Phantom's whole thing with Christine, like, that's got to be a huge clue, right?
Right. The video makes a big deal about how possessive he is over her. And honestly, I think it makes a lot of sense if you see it as that sexual fear of being replaced. Like, imagine being terrified of losing that one person who makes you feel seen.
Yeah, and it's not even just wanting to be with someone. It's got to be like all or nothing, right?
Totally. It's that deep, singular connection that they crave. But when those insecurities take over, it can turn really possessive. And then there's that scene where he finally shows Christina's face. She sees everything, all his vulnerability, talk about intense.
Seriously.
And he's begging her to choose him, even though he looks the way he does. That's so four-like, don't you think? Craving that acceptance, but then not believing they deserve it. It's heartbreaking.
It's almost like he sabotages the whole thing because deep down, he's so scared she'll reject him.
Exactly. And that actually ties into another point from the video. They were saying how the Phantom's need to control everything comes from that fear of being abandoned. It's like tragic, really. He ends up pushing Christine away because of it.
Okay, but hear me out on this. Couldn't you also see him as an 8? He's definitely got that commanding presence, right?
Yeah.
That need for control. Doesn't that fit?
At first glance, 8s and 4s can seem pretty similar. They've both got that intensity, like they do everything in a big way. You see it when the Phantom clashes with Raoul. He doesn't mess around.
Totally. He's not afraid of a little confrontation. So how do we know he's not just an 8 protecting what he sees as his?
Because deep down, 8s are all about being independent. Control is how they protect themselves from getting hurt. It's like they build up these walls. But the Phantom, he lets Christine see right through them. He wants that emotional connection more than anything. Like when he says, "If I am the Phantom, it is because man's hatred has made me so." That's him wanting someone to get him, to see past the surface and recognize his pain. 8s aren't usually like that.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's a really important difference.
Right. And the video, it makes this whole thing kind of sad, really. Like, imagine feeling everything so much, You want that real connection more than anything, but you don't know how to get it without messing it up. It's like the Phantom story is a warning or something. Like, this is what can happen when a 4 lets their fear control them.
So then what would a healthy 4, like, how would they act if they were the Phantom?
Well, they'd still be, feeling all those highs and lows super intensely, but they'd be better at handling it. Like, instead of trying to control everyone, they'd use their art to reach out, build bridges instead of walls.
And instead of being scared of being replaced, Maybe they'd even see their uniqueness as a good thing.
Totally. It just goes to show, even if you know your Enneagram type, you can always grow and change.
That's really encouraging. Well, we really dug deep into this whole phantom thing today, and honestly, I think the sexual four thing really fits. The way he craves connection, hates rejection, uses his music to show his feelings. It all lines up.
We can't really, give a fictional character an official Enneagram type, but looking at it this way helps us see how complex he is. Even with that mask on, there's a whole lot of heart in there, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, think about this as we wrap up. If the phantom really is a 4, what does that teach us about letting our fears run wild? And what would it look like for him, for any of us, to find a healthier path? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everybody.